This is Jonathan and
Loli.
welcome back for another segment of our training.
Hi guys.
Today we're going to talk about what to do when you're at your appointment. So we talked a little bit about prospecting, how to schedule those appointments, how to handle some of those objections, and today we're going to talk about what you actually need to do when you're in front of the family. The most important thing is to be yourself. Don't want to sound scripted, but there are certain things that you do want to touch up on. You want to make sure you do extract certain pieces of information, and you need to find a way to hit certain bullet points throughout your presentation. There isn't a designed way on this needs to come first, this needs to come second. You just need to make sure you touch up on them when appropriate, and we're going to learn how to do that today. So with that being said, one of the things that we always like to do, and typically happens right in the beginning, it might come later, it all depends on the circumstances, but you want to scan your room.
Absolutely. You definitely want to you have to remember, these people are inviting you into their home. This is their personal space. So a lot of times when I walk into somebody's house, I'm scanning my environment. Whether it's a design concept in mid-century modern, whether it's photos of kids, whether it's dogs and cats, whatever you see in their environment, in their personal space, find something that you can connect with. You know, a lot of times we'll drive up to someone's home, we'll see the American flag. Jonathan always makes it a point to ask if they're a veteran, thank them for their service, and we at least know how to tailor a conversation around that. Again, a huge factor is just being yourself. So I always enter a room as if they're my family, they're my friends. I want to know about them. Remember, they're not buying a policy or a plan. They're buying you. They're trusting you. And so because we know that, we want to make sure that they feel comfortable in asking us the hard questions.
Absolutely. Establishing that relationship comes second to none.
Absolutely.
And part of what you're doing here is you're extracting information, right? You're becoming relatable. You're connecting with them on something that you both have in common. And even more so, you're figuring out what pieces of the puzzle that you're going to bring up later on in your presentation where you can help them design a memorable funeral. And that's what's most important here is it's not about what we want. It's about finding a way where we could honor them and learn a little bit more about how they would want to be remembered. And you do that all by starting off with scanning the room.
Absolutely.
So you might find a photograph of children, grandchildren, maybe one with a fishing pole in it, a cowboy hat, something to that extent, and you're going to keep that right up here. And when the situation presents itself, that needs to come back, and you need to tie it all together.
Absolutely. One of the things that I've learned in all my years in doing this, and I'm sure Jonathan can attest to this as well, when you go in and you're sitting with the husband and wife, most of the time the husband is like, I don't care, cremate me, throw me in the ocean. I don't want a service, I want the most simple, most basic things. But if I have scanned the room correctly and I have already connected knowing that they have kids and grandkids and a legacy that they have built, I will key into that. I understand that. I feel the same way. But you need to think about the ones who are going to be mourning your loss. What do they need in order to have closure? Remember we talked about little Kathy over there and how she's a grandpa's girl? What do you think she needs to have closure in her heart when you leave? And so you flip it and you make it about their family. Because a lot of if you ask me what I want, cremate me, throw me in the ocean. I don't care, really, but my kids are not going to be okay with that. They need something that's going to help them close a little bit of that sorrow. And so that's why scanning the room is really important and finding those pieces to really connect and build something on.
Absolutely. And what Loli just said right now segues into really the second thing that I like to uncover when I meet with a family. Why today?
Exactly.
Right? There's a reason why they want to protect little Kathy. There's a reason why that's important. And what we've learned is that there's usually three main reasons why people begin to even consider talking to you about their own death. Because let's face it, it's uncomfortable. No one wants to talk about it. The first one is usually because they recently buried somebody they love or cremated them. They had a funeral service and it hurt. It was hard. It wasn't easy, and they don't want their loved ones to have to go through the same things they just did. The second reason is because maybe someone they knew lost somebody they love, and they attended that funeral and they realized, wow, I saw how much it hurt them. Kind of tie in with one another. Now, the big number two behind that is I went to the doctor and look, maybe I didn't have something imminent, terminal, that's going to kill me today or tomorrow or in the next 6 months. But was enough to open up my eyes and make me realize this young man isn't invincible anymore, and death can and will eventually happen. So now I want to be ready. I don't want my family to have to worry about what if that was worse news than what it really was. And then finally, of course, you're at an age where you're planning for the inevitable. You've retired. You're putting all of your affairs in order. Your will and trust attorney just said, hey, so we did this, and that. Where do you have your burial plot? Have you prearranged your funeral? Let's put those documents all in here. And you haven't. So now it's time.
Yep.
So you got to understand why they're willing to meet with you here today. And even more so, why it's important that they don't walk out of that appointment ill-protected.
For sure.
So from there, where would you typically go?
I mean, really it's about personalization, and then it's just a matter of, like you said, finding out the details, going through the basics, which I know we're going to get to in another video, actually breaking down the actual packages. But in this situation, there's a lot of times where there's objectives that are going to be thrown at you. You know, there's going to be like, well, I have life insurance, well, I have this. It's really important that you have these really in-depth conversations so that they feel secure and protected when you leave. Remind them why you're there. Why did you invite me into your home? After you've had this conversation, you understand what they need, what they want, you've presented, and it's still kind of hitting that, a little bit of that brick wall, a little bit of the unsurety of it. You have to remind them, you brought me into your home. I know that everybody's bankrupt on time. I don't want to waste your time. I want to make sure that I'm doing exactly what you've invited me into your home to do. So again, always bringing it back to that personalization, relatability, and then making sure they feel comfortable with who you are and what you can offer.
Absolutely. Now, one thing that I really like to do is when I'm scanning the room, I'm not only looking at, certain decorations, photographs, things of that sort. When I'm meeting with the family, I'm scanning the individuals there.
Absolutely.
Right? If I'm meeting with the husband and wife, and the husband's driving the conversation and he's answering all the questions, well, I know he's the decision maker. And in most cases, folks, the woman's driving the conversation, especially when it comes to, planning for the inevitable.
Yeah.
So I need to identify who's driving my conversation, and I use that as a tool, right? At some point in time, I'm going to educate them on what they need to do when someone passes away. Because the most important thing you could do is, when you don't have someone who's already raised their hand and said, I want to do this, let's meet, and you're trying to help them understand the sense of urgency, you need to make it real.
Yeah.
You need to, in one way or another, show them what it would be like if one of them were to pass. And the best way to do that is to ask the person who's not the decision maker what they would do if, heaven forbid, it's 11 p.m., and your husband and or wife, whoever the decision maker is usually home and they're not. And you've been calling them and they're not picking up. And then eventually you get a phone call and you hear that they passed away. What's your first move? Who do you call? Where do you go, right? Now, when the decision maker begins to speak, we cut them out and say, with all due respect, you're not here anymore. We need to expose that reality.
Absolutely.
We need them to realize that this could happen, and if they're not here to help you, how are you going to get through it? That helps the person who isn't the decision maker know that this is something we really need to do. And even more so, the decision maker knows that, wow, typically I'm holding their hand and now I can't. This is the best way that I can hold their hand even when I'm no longer here.
Absolutely. I will tell you, just to kind of break that and go back to that, as an agent or as somebody that's going into the home, that is not an easy thing to do. So what Jonathan just did so seamlessly and effortlessly is not, I don't want you to think that that's an easy thing to do, because it is something that is well versed, it's well practiced, it's something that's in your gut that you have to just know how to speak it and make it happen with ease, because talking about death in the current situation is never comfortable. And so I want you to understand that what you just witnessed by him coming in and just exposing the cracks in there and doing what he just said is not easy. It's a difficult conversation to have, and I don't want you to feel that it's an easy thing to do. It's something that needs to be practiced. It's something that you need to come to terms with yourself. So a lot of times what I will do with my people that I'm training to make them sound like Jonathan or even have that effortless conversation is I actually do it with my family. I do it with myself and my loved ones because that's going to be your hardest conversation because it is real. It's gut-wrenching to look at your parents and ask that and do that dialect with them. And if you're so lucky to have both of them here, do it because it's going to allow you to feel what they're feeling so that you can speak with empathy, so that you can lower your tone. You can move your body language according to how they're starting to feel. And a lot of times, if this is true for me, I know it's true for you, you'll see them start to tear up. Even though none of them are sick. Even though they're doing what they need to do for their planning. They're doing what they're doing. But in that moment, death becomes tangible to them. And it's not easy. And I just wanted to take a break and just remind you guys, have these conversations with your family first so that you understand what that feels like. Otherwise, you'll never ask that. You'll never be able to do that, what Jonathan just did.
And the importance behind doing that is making the situation real.
Absolutely.
Heavy emphasis on that. You want the conversation to be difficult. You'll get used to it.
Yeah.
But for them, it'll be their first time. And the reason why is, what are we really trying to accomplish? Is we're trying to take this difficult conversation, let them know that it's difficult, but how great is it that we can have this difficult conversation while sitting across the table, joking, laughing, and having a drink of coffee? Because the reality is that if we don't have this difficult conversation now, joking, laughing, and having that sip of coffee, your loved ones are going to do it when you're not there,
Yeah.
and they haven't slept, and they're grieving. And you want them to know that. It's okay to have a difficult conversation because either we're going to have it today and be done with it so no one else has to, or we're going to have a difficult conversation, you're going to think about it, not protect your family, and they're going to have it again when the environment's going to be much more difficult.
Absolutely.
So make it easier. So it's okay to have a tough talk. Find a way to pull through. But to Loli's point, if you don't believe in what you're doing and the impact that it's going to have on your loved ones, then there's no way that you're going to be able to portray that
Absolutely.
to your family. You need to believe what you're doing is right. And the best way to do it, and I encourage her statement, do it with people you love so you can feel that little burn in your chest. Because if you have that, you'll have what it takes to help people protect the people they love most.
Absolutely. By having these difficult conversations, it takes the sting out of death. It actually breaks the conversation. Sometimes people will go their whole life without experiencing death or without even thinking about it. And God, that's incredible, but that's not a reality at the end of the day. Unfortunately, myself and Jonathan have been through many deaths, personal deaths, and so we have felt the sting many, many times doing this and not doing this. And so it's easy for us to go through and remember. And so I know that a lot of you probably have walked through that same path. Remember what it felt like. Remember the cloud that you were in. And having these conversations, it takes the sting out of death just a little bit, because I guarantee you, like Jonathan said, you're either going to have this conversation laughing with your loved one, or they're going to have it in a room full of sorrow and they're not going to know what to do. But I promise you, I've sat in the room with both. And when they have done their pre-planning, I have sat with them when someone has passed and they're saying, God, I'm so glad we got to laugh about this and talk this through. I don't even have to worry. I don't have to think. I know exactly what they wanted.
And what Loli just did right now is shared a story and a testimonial about an experience she had with the family. Those are powerful. Remember the stories that people share with you. Ask them if it's okay to share their stories without mentioning their names in the future. It's your most powerful tool. I share stories about experiences that I've personally had. I've shared stories about experiences that my best friends have had, my relatives have had. I've even shared experiences and stories on why people want to prearrange and what their prearrangement looked like, so that folks know that it doesn't always have to be hard, sad, and difficult.
Yeah.
It can be a joyous event. I've had folks that have told me, I want to have a cremation with a memorial service to follow, And guess what? I want to have an open podium, a taco bar,
Yep.
and an open bar. And anyone who gets up to speak, to share stories about me, needs to insult me or make a joke about me in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
It threw me back. I had to stop and ask this gentleman if he was planning for a roasting event or if he was planning for a celebration of his life. And he said, well, you don't get it. I love golfing. I want everyone to go in golf attires, wear bright colors. And guess what? I want them to roast me and make jokes and laugh at me, because anyone who knew me knew that I would always pick on people and laugh at them, but it was my way of showing them I love them. And so I wanted to make it light and easy for them, because I won't be there. I can care less. But if I can make it easier on them and make them laugh just a little bit while they're remembering me, then that's the whole point of this thing.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty cool. So share those stories, because it gives people an idea on how they can plan, which really segues into the next topic and bullet point you want to cover is, how do you want to be remembered? What would celebrating your life look like? The way I like to ask them is, if I were someone in your family and I was attending the funeral, where would I go first? What would that day look like for me? Am I going to wake up and go to the funeral home chapel? Am I going to the church? Are we not having an event until after a cremation is performed? If it's a burial, do we go back to your favorite restaurant? Talk me through the day. Where do I go first? Then what happens? And then, as we're talking about it, I might just bring up that, you said you wanted to have a cremation and then you're going to have a celebration of life like our buddy at the golf course. But I notice you have a cowboy hat there. I might just turn around and say, hey, look, did you know that you can get an urn that has cowboy boots? Nice little hat. What better way to remember you than to have an urn that speaks to who you are and what you love?
Yeah.
And that's how you tie in all those little pieces of the puzzle when you were scanning the room, making sure they understand the importance of it, understanding why they need it, helping them understand that it's difficult now and much more difficult later, but it can be easier. And, oh, by the way, let's make this more about you.
Absolutely.
So those are all little bullet points you want to
Yeah.
touch up on. One thing that I really want to emphasize is, in your relationship building, you want to overcome as many objections that you will face during that time frame. The I need to talk to my kids is something that can be brought up because we're here to protect the kids so that they don't have to have this conversation. So in the end, let's lock it in so they don't have to worry about it, right?
Absolutely.
Life insurance, I bring it up. I was a life insurance agent, so I talk about how life insurance is for the living, and you need a death certificate to file the claim, which can take time before it's even paid out. And I nip that in the bud and I go, it's amazing as to how many people don't realize how bad their family suffers until they get that reimbursement. When funeral pre-need complements life insurance, they go together, they don't fight one another.
Yeah.
They're a need in both areas of your life. And I find casual ways to knock out the majority of the objections that I've learned that I face. So we want you to pay close attention to when you hit a roadblock in your appointment. Pick up the phone, call us, or listen to one of our following segments, which is particularly about objection handling. Listen to our rebuttals and how we handle those. And try to find a creative way to nip those objections in the butt before the family objects using them. Because if you've already brought it up, now they can't. And when they bring it up first and you overcome the objection, they sometimes feel like you're just trying to sell or close them. So if you can get to them before they get to you, you're already winning.
Absolutely. It's a huge bonus and plus to actually bring the objectives to the table first. It gives you a little bit of an upper hand, and obviously we're not playing a game of poker in this, but it does give some relief because as somebody who's going in, one, you're already nervous, you're in somebody's home, you're speaking about things that are uncomfortable, you don't know how they're going to respond or react. So you're already in a situation, in an environment that lends to uncomfortability. So when they start to throw objections at you, it just puts you on edge, and just like Jonathan said, it makes you go to feeling like an actual salesperson. And that's when they stop trusting you. When you look like somebody who is just selling them something and not believing it, you've lost them already. And so it's important that you put the objectives in the front so that when you're talking to them and it starts to come out really smooth. You know, understanding what life insurance is, how it works is really important. So being well studied on those types of things. I know that this is a job with a lot of loose ends, and there are a lot of moving parts that you need to understand. But the more that you start to learn about the objectives, the better and the easier it becomes to just bring them up, knock them out the room, they don't bring them up again. The whole kids thing, guaranteed, kids in life insurance are going to be your number one, your
Absolutely.
number one objective. And those are my favorite. Actually, I have learned to love those objectives because I've just learned about it and I've been able to handle it and I love it.
The more you know, the easier it is to talk about it, the more confident you are. And speaking with conviction,
Absolutely.
bar none, is the most important thing. We've all heard that statement, fake it till you make it. You should know your stuff, but whatever you speak like it's 100% true and accurate, no hesitation, no doubt. You need to be confident when you speak. You need to look people in the eye when you speak. So try to stay away from those digital slideshows.
Yeah.
Try to steer away from having pen on paper while you're talking to people. Take notes, but look them in the eye. Ask open-ended questions. Learn more about them and act like they're the most fascinating thing.
Yep.
You need to have interest in them and their life story and find those unique ways to connect. So those are all things that you really want to touch up on. Once you hear their story and what they want, now it's a matter of tying in the appropriate plan or package that meets their needs. And when you get to it, we'll learn a little bit more about product and funeral terminology, so on and so forth, depending on which location you're representing here in our country. However, after that comes the close. And the close couldn't be more important. When I go to the close, we've already figured out what they want, what they need. Now, we get to a certain dollar amount. It's not a matter of asking them if that's comfortable for them. It's a matter of asking them how they want to pay for it. Yep. And usually their jaws drop. If you're planning a burial in Los Angeles County, you're probably looking at between $10,000 to $14,000 for the funeral services alone.
Yeah.
In San Diego, you're probably looking at 7 to 10. Every market has its own general price range. And it's kind of like real estate, right? If you have a fancy neighborhood in your town, well, the properties there cost more than the properties in some of the rougher areas, right? And with that, it's reflective on their pricing. It's not them trying to gouge you, it's the cost to keep their doors open are higher, right? So they have to charge more because of where they're located or the amount of staff that they have. So with that, it's sticker shock to the family. Mm-hmm. So most people don't have $14,000 laying around and ready to spend just for the funeral when now they still have the cemetery to come up with. So when you ask a family that at a pre-arrangement, they go, we have to pay for that all today. Mm-hmm. And I go, no, the beautiful thing is you can make payments. But had we not been pre-arranging, yes, your wife or husband or children would have to pay for that all today because there's no burial without the funds. And then I move into payment options. Mm-hmm. You can pay in full, you can pay over 1 year, you can pay over 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, depending on your age. Pull out my rate calculator, I give them the price, I give them 2 options, and I say, which one's most comfortable for you? Not, will these work? We know they need it. If it's not comfortable and they can't afford it, believe me, they'll tell you. One of the things that I always have liked to ask people on the front end is, before I leave today, just level with me, and if I'm not the right fit for you because of me, let me know. And if there's something about my presentation, my product, or the price that doesn't sit well with you, let me know. Mm-hmm. If I don't leave here protecting you and your family, just level with me, give it to me straight, I can handle it, but tell me why. Because if you're meeting with me today to talk about something that's difficult to talk about, then I know you deep down inside have someone you love that you want to protect. And if we can't do it today, then I need to know why, because it means I did something wrong. Just level with me. And so when we get to that roadblock, if they go, I need to think about it, I'll remind them that they told me it was important and you said you level with me. So what's there to think about? Because little Kathy still is going to need to do this when you pass away. So what is it exactly that you need to think about? And if their answer isn't good enough, I'm probing. And then I handle it with whatever it may be. Well, right now, about $130 a month is kind of my budget. I know it's only $20 more at $150, but it's hard to swing that. I mean, I just can't come up with it. Well, then I might look to the fact that they have a Starbucks cup right over there, and I go, no, I totally get it. Let me ask you a question. I love coffee. I go to Starbucks regularly. Notice that you have that caramel frappuccino over there, and it's a venti. How many times a week do you go to Starbucks? I'm not asking you to cut that out of your diet, but look, if we removed one Starbucks visit a week, guess what? You're making up for that $20 in 2 of those, and now you're pocketing that extra $20. So you took your $150 and brought it down to $110. You're saving $20 a month. Affordability, this is one of my punchlines, is based on priority. If it's important to you, you'll find a way to make it work.
Absolutely. To speak to Jonathan's, everything that he's saying, I'm going to combat it in a different way, because again, we're training you, and because you're watching these videos, you're learning how to close. The art of closing is not easy. Again, effortless, seamless. He has all the words, the verbiage, the tone, the body posture, all of that. That's in a perfect world, that's how it's going to come off to you. But I know, as a new counselor or a new salesperson or a new, one of our agents, this is not going to be easy for you. One of the most important things that I've ever learned in this industry is do not sell out of your own pocket. What you have in your pocket does not determine what they can swing. So the most important thing for you is you've already know their decisions. They've said yes to all of these decisions. They know. Now it's time to sit back and stay quiet. Sometimes as a new counselor or a new sales agent, we don't have the sweet, smooth conversations that Jonathan has by doing this for so many years. Sometimes silence is going to be your best asset. 7-second rule. Sometimes if I present them exactly when I was starting, saying, listen, this is what you showed me that you wanted. This is what we agreed on. You told me everything that you love. I have it right here for you. This is what the cost is going to be. Are we ready to do this today? Silence. Sometimes if they're like, oh my gosh, even if they're combating, like I didn't expect it to be like 10 grand. What am I going to pay this all today? You stay quiet. Because a lot of times their first reaction is to rebuttal. It's in us. It's in who we are to come back, right? But sometimes if you don't know what to say, staying quiet, letting the room speak for itself, and then they get to the next question on their own. Oh my gosh, this is crazy, $10,000. Oh my gosh, it's expensive to die. Just throw me in the ocean. Oh my gosh, what am I supposed to pay this all today? And then guess what? Boom, they said exactly what he said they were going to say. You don't have to pay this today. Are you kidding me? I can't come up with 10 grand either. Like, be real. Connect with them. So that's a really important juxtaposition in how we're doing our sales training. Is we've got seasoned, we've got what you want to be, right? We understand and we're giving you the tools to how to get there, right? But we understand what it's like to walk in someone's house for the first time and just be scared.
And piggybacking off that, we're going to have segments upon segments on closing, objections, and how to respond. So all of this information that Loli's given you on the beginner entry level, pre-need salesperson, and a little bit more in advanced, there's a method to our madness here. You're not being thrown into the pit with a bunch of wolves asking to be a wolf right now. But the best way to be a wolf is to jump into the pit with the wolves. So you're going to have this, and all in between. But it's up to you to dedicate your time and energy to study these videos, listen to what we have to say, pick up the phone, shoot us a text, give us a call, send us an email, and ask us about some of the roadblocks that you had and how we would go about handling them when you're in your appointments if you can't find them in these videos. Because every conversation is unique. Yeah. So today we talked about some of the things that you want to cover when you're in your appointment. We're in no way, shape, or form expecting you to go into a presentation and get through it after this segment, which is why you're going to have several segments on your presentation and the actual appointment coming up. So continue to follow us. If you have more time, click on segment 2. If you need that coffee break from Starbucks to save up for your own funeral pre-need, only have 1 cup this week, not a second, and we'll get this going. Thank you for joining us. We'll have more for you here soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.